Indiana in the Morning is presented by First Commonwealth Bank here on AM 1160 WCCS and 101.1 FM, 946 in the morning. And happy to welcome into the studio this morning Benjamin Fitzgerald-Fye, who is a seminary intern at Calvary Presbyterian Church here in Indiana, and online seminary student from the University of Dubuque, did you say?
That is correct.
That's a distance.
Long distance,
That's distance education. That's the definition of distance education right there. But involved as an intern at the Calvary Presbyterian Church here in Indiana, originally from Punxsutawney.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. And this being Sexual Abuse Awareness Month and Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Child Sexual Assault Awareness Month, it is certainly a topic of great importance and a wonderful event that is coming up on Friday evening at Calvary Presbyterian Church. What is it, and what is it about?
We are holding a special prayer service to honor this Child Abuse Prevention Month that's going on. Indiana County has a lot of activities going on around that. This is called A Child Shall Not Suffer. It is specifically a prayer service that is intended to lift up the issue of child abuse, to pray for those affected by child abuse, to raise awareness of child abuse in general, and to pray for those who are working every day in the service of trying to end this kind of horrible nightmare that is affecting children right here in Indiana County.
Sounds like an interesting service. How are you going to format that?
It is a service of, obviously, scripture readings, prayers, some musical offerings. We will have representatives from Alice Paul House, from the Care Center of Indiana County, who will be kind of explaining their services, the impact of their services. They're doing incredibly important work every single day. And Calvary itself is sort of intentionally becoming a part of making impact in the community in this way. So it's a meaningful, sacred, solemn affair. However, it's predicated on the idea that there is hope, that there is healing, that there is repair that comes after these horrible things happen, that we can be part of the solution and not just part of being aware of the sort of horrible details of the problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. Too often the problem in the public's mind stops as soon as the guy is caught or the perpetrator is run through the judicial system, and we don't consider that the issues of the abuse victim go on sometimes for a lifetime.
Oh, exactly. I mean, these kinds of things affect a child for the length of their life. And, even worse than that, sometimes we think this is kind of a law and order SVU problem, right? This is not a problem that's affecting people we see on the streets every day. So this is a real problem, and it's a reality here in Indiana County and all the surrounding counties. I mean, hundreds of kids every year are affected by some kind of physical or sexual abuse.
Yeah, and it interests me as well that after the service, the members of the Care Center and the Alice Paul House are going to be available to meet with people.
Yeah, they will be there to answer any questions. We will have clergy and deacons on hand to pray with anybody who may want individual prayer after the service. The goal is to raise awareness, to spread information, to use the church community as a voice for, raising this issue up so that we understand that it is real and it is here.
What lifted the issue up in your eyes in order to come up with this service?
I have worked, my volunteer life has been in domestic violence for many years. As a child, my own world was affected by domestic violence. So violence has become a very central issue of my own ministry. So I believe that violence is this sort of huge, amorphous thing that affects so many people in so many ways. And I think the church has a specific role in combating violence in all of its forms. And so for me, this is an important function of the faith community.
One of the interesting things about the issues of child abuse, interesting to me anyway, is the way that the victims of child abuse react to it, which can be in any number of different forms. I like the fact that on the sheet that I'm looking at here, one of the things that you say is the creation of stillness, a space for stillness that the church is able to provide, that the church community is able to provide, the real definition of church. That has to be a part of the solution or of the equation for any victim of child abuse.
Yeah, we live in a noisy world, right? There is something going on all the time, and we are never, we're not encouraged anymore to kind of be still and be present. And these kids are affected by just chaos. And, the families are affected by chaos. Violence is chaos by definition. And so giving a place to just, be present and still and in a peaceful and safe environment can be so important, just to sort of offer folks a moment to heal and a moment to just be and to just breathe and to just, breathe in hope as opposed to this chaotic noise that we're surrounded by all the time.
The program is called A Child Shall Not Suffer. It is coming up on Friday, 7 p.m. at Calvary Presbyterian Church at the corner of 7th and Church Streets here in Indiana, and Benjamin Fitzgerald-Fye is with us here this morning. We, of course, in the context of a church service, obviously, anytime you walk into a church service, it's for worship. And to ignore the role of the Spirit in the healing process is a big mistake, isn't it?
Yeah, and when I started this work in domestic violence especially, what I kind of learned was that there's not a lot of spiritual language that we use in dealing with these issues. And the reality is the effects are physical, they're psychological, they're emotional, they're also spiritual. We live in a world where this kind of activity raises questions that need to be answered by something larger than ourselves. And so there is a real spiritual effect on the victims of violence.
Interesting to me as well that as part of the service on Friday, it will be the youth choir that performs. Maybe some of those folks involved in the youth choir are victims, more likely not, and yet they want to be a part of this.
Yeah, well, we did have a little bit of a change. I think we're going to have some student performers. But more importantly, in the church, a lot of the initial reports are made by clergy. So clergy has a role as kind of an outcry witness. We see kids every week, right? Sometimes every day. We have a lot of youth programs. We have a lot of Sunday school programs. So we're working with kids, and statistics are telling us that 1 in 10 kids, right, is affected by some form of child abuse. So we're seeing 10s, 20s, 30s of kids, right? So the chances of one of them being affected is relatively high. And so clergy especially needs to be aware of seeing warning signs, of seeing, being present when a kid comes forward and, cries out that this has happened, in believing them, which is the first and most important step, right, of taking them seriously when they say these things. So clergy has a pretty important role in this.
And an element of any of these considerations when discussing abuse of any sort, but and specifically child abuse, is we sometimes tend to forget about praying for the perpetrators of the violence. When we had the Domestic Assault Task Force in with us earlier this month, a couple of the members of the task force are members of the prison, staff members at the prison, and they pointed out that those are folks who are in need of prayer as well, because to attack the problem is to change the heart.
Yeah,
it needs to happen.
We do. I mean, we tend to throw the perpetrators out as we're talking about the issue, but the reality is, what percentage of perpetrators have been affected by the same kind of violence, right? How many of them are repeating a cycle that they learned at far too young an age? And so there's healing to go around. There's enough healing that needs done on both sides of the issue. And we are a Christian community. There is power in forgiveness. There is power in reconciliation. So the idea that, we are called to minister to everybody who is affected by this, and that includes perpetrators who, I'm sure are wrestling with demons of their own and need help in their own ways.
Service comes up on Friday. It's at 7 p.m. at Calvary Presbyterian Church here in Indiana. Benjamin Fitzgerald-Fye has been with us here this morning. Thanks so much for coming in this morning. It was not an easy thing to set this one up today, was it?
No, it was. Thank you for having me. It was great that we were able to set it up. This is an important issue.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day today.
Thank you. You too.
It is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, and it's AM 1160 WCCS 101.1 FM.